Welcome to the video on the Minimal Viable Product or MVP for the source-to-pay end-to-end business process in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. In this video, we will explore how the source-to-pay process efficiently handles purchasing needs, resulting in tangible outcomes such as received goods and related inventory transactions, vendors' invoices and payments, general ledger transactions. By focusing on the essential features of the system, we will demonstrate how this MVP scenario can streamline your procurement and payment operations. Additionally, we will highlight the seamless integration between supply chain management and finance in our solution.
Our MVP scenario is based on the following assumptions. All processes related to purchasing requirements approvals, selecting vendors, determining prices, are executed outside the system. The demonstration focuses on the essential functionalities of the business processes highlighted in red. Creating a vendor, issuing a purchase order, registration of a goods receipt, registration of a vendor's invoice, creating a payment to a vendor based on an invoice, reviewing BI reports related to procurement and accounts receivable areas. We will review the outcome objects. Received goods, vendors' invoices and payments, inventory transactions, finance transactions. In our scenario, steps are executed by a purchasing agent, a buying agent, and an account payable clerk. Now we can start our demo. I am Emmy, the purchasing agent at Contoso. I have received a task from CFO Julia Funderburk to purchase 10 Surface Pro 128GB laptops from the vendor Best Laptops, where contact person is John Smith. The vendor has a certificate to distribute Surface laptops. Each item is priced at $2,000, with a delivery date of approximately 2 weeks. Released product ID for Surface is 1000. It was added to the system using design to retire end-to-end business process. Additionally, we need to account $200 for transportation costs, paid to the same vendor. We will start with the scenario Create Vendor manually. This scenario belongs to the business process 75.30.020 Onboard New Suppliers. To create a purchase order, we need vendor information in our system. Let's find the vendor's card. Emmy navigates to Procurement and Sourcing module, Menu Vendor, Form All Vendors. She types Best Laptops in the search control. The system reports no vendor with that name, so Emmy needs to create a new vendor in the system. Emmy clicks button New, and the system opens the new record form with several tab pages. On the General tab, Emmy defines the vendor account, name, search name, and group for the vendor. The group is used for vendor classification, default payment terms, and creating general ledger transactions related to accounts payable. On the Addresses tab, Emmy defines the addresses used in purchasing documents. She selects the country first, then enters the county and city manually or via zip code, e.g., 98106. She adds street and house info and marks the address as primary if needed. The address can be checked on the map if necessary. The Contact Information tab contains vendor data, email, phone, and corporate website. Let's add the email sales@bestlaptops.com and make it the primary contact source. On the Miscellaneous Details tab, we can add additional information, including the buyer group responsible for this vendor. On the Purchasing Demographics tab, we can change the default currency for the vendor if it differs from the company's primary currency and add classification information like line of business and segment. On the Invoice and Delivery tab, our purchasing agent can select the invoice account if it differs from the vendor's account. She defines the default delivery terms and model of delivery. The Purchase Order Defaults tab contains information automatically applied to every purchase order. Emmy defines the default site, warehouse, and purchase pool for this vendor. The Payment tab is crucial. After getting these details from the vendor, Emmy registers them in the vendor's card. She selects the default terms of payment 10 working days after invoice receipt. We'll use the electronic payment method, and our system will send the payment task to the bank. To register the vendor's bank account number, we go to the ribbon and select Bank Accounts. In the opened window, we create a new record and add the necessary information for electronic payment, such as IBAN. The created bank account should be set as the default bank account on the Payment tab. Information about contact persons from the vendor's side can be added in the contacts form from the ribbon. Emmy enters John Smith's full name and phone number here. While Emmy adds data to the form's fields, the system proposes to use information about contact persons that already exists in database. For example, if John Smith was an other vendor's contact person in the past or he is former Contoso employee, you can link all these roles of John to one master record and have a history for John in the system. To add information about the state-issued vendor registration ID, Emmy selects the Registration IDs menu in the ribbon. She selects the address record and creates a new record on the Registration ID tab. Emmy defines the registration type, in our case, Legal Entity ID for the USA, and adds a registration number. The final step for Emmy is to upload the vendor's certificate to the system. In Dynamics 365 ERP, you can attach any number of files to each record. Certificate uploading is based on this technology. By clicking the Certifications button in the ribbon, Emmy opens the form and creates a new record for the certificate. She selects the certification type, certification number, and certifying organization. For the document, she adds the certification date and expiration date. Once the main information is ready, Emmy attaches the scan of the certificate using the Paperclip button. After uploading, the certification image can be previewed from the system, and the Paperclip sign will show the number of attached documents. Emmy has successfully registered a new vendor in the system and added all the necessary information for the next step. Current information about the vendor can be found on the Summary by Copilot tab, showing that there is no business activity related to the vendor yet. Now we are ready to create a purchase order as part of the Business Process Area 75.40 Procure Goods and Services, specifically the Business Process 75.40.030 Issue Purchase Orders. There are several ways to create a purchase order in Dynamics 365 ERP. For example, it can be created manually from the vendor card or automatically from planned purchase orders, purchase requisition, request for quotation, or vendor agreement. Let's review another option. Emmy will create it manually from the Purchase Order Preparation workspace. Emmy opens the workspace and clicks the New Purchase Order tile. The Create Purchase Order form opens. Emmy selects the vendor, filtering by name, then selects a contact person. The delivery address is filled automatically based on the vendor's default warehouse. On the General tab, Emmy changes information related to the delivery date. On the Administration tab, she adds information about the requester, Julia Funderburk, and clicks OK. The system opens the purchase order card. The form has 3 sections: header, lines, and line details. The header contains information set up during the purchase order creation stage, which can be changed if needed. The lines define the list of items or services to be purchased. Since the first empty line is already created, Emmy selects item number 1000, sets the quantity to 10, and sets the unit price to 2000. On the Line Details tab, under the Delivery tab, Emmy updates the requested receipt date. We expect to receive our purchase in 2 weeks from today. Since the item price can depend on the delivery date, the system prompts us to update the price value. During negotiations with the vendor, Emmy received a 10% discount, which she adds to the line. In Dynamics 365 AI ERP, there are 2 options to add charges to a purchase order: automatically, based on the system's master data, or manually. Let's review the second option. In the purchase order form, Emmy selects Purchase in the ribbon, then Maintain Charges. She sets up a charge code freight, sets the category to fixed, and adds a charge value of $200. Other options for category include percent, pieces, specific unit, and others. Once the record is saved, Emmy can allocate this charge to lines. She selects Purchase in the ribbon, then Allocate Charges. In the form, Emmy sets up how charges should be allocated to lines. She selects the default option All charges, net amount, should be distributed to all lines in the purchase order. The initial status of the purchase order is approved because, in our scenario, we assumed that the purchase order is already approved within the company, and we only need to register a confirmation from the vendor. To create a document with purchase order details for the vendor, Emmy generates a purchase inquiry from the Generate menu in the ribbon. The document contains all purchase order information and can be viewed via the Journal menu. After generating the purchase inquiry, the status of the purchase order changes to an external review. Since our vendor is not using vendor collaboration functionality, Emmy should send the purchase inquiry to the vendor's contact person via email. Emmy receives confirmation from the vendor, notifying that the purchase can be delivered in 1 week. To register this update, Emmy updates the value in the Confirmed Receipt Date field in the Line section of the purchase order form. Then, she registers the vendor's confirmation in the system by clicking Actions, Confirm in the ribbon. The status of the purchase order changes to Confirmed. After the purchasing agent creates the purchase order in the system generates inventory transactions for the future delivery of Surface laptops. Peter, the buying agent, checks the on-hand inventory for the site defined as default for the vendor and item 1000. He sees that there is an inventory transaction for 10 surfaces, with the status ordered in total. The next step in the process is registering the physical receipt of items in the company. As always, there are several ways to do this. In our scenario, we will use the simplest option, registering the receipt of all purchased items from the purchase order form. Peter, the buying agent, is responsible for receiving purchased goods at Contoso. When he receives information about delivery and shipping documents from Best Laptops, Peter opens the Workspace purchase order receipt and follow-up. He selects Pending Receipts, by vendor, adjusts the Days Forward from Today field, and clicks on the tile containing the purchase order from Best Laptops. Peter opens the purchase order form and in the ribbon, he selects Generate Receipt List. This document contains information about the goods to be delivered by the vendor. To print the document, he opens the receipt list from the journal's menu, reviews, and prints it. When the laptops from the vendor arrive, Peter checks the product names and quantity. To register the item's receipt in the system, he returns to the purchase order form and clicks Generate Product Receipt. In the form, he adds the product receipt number from the vendor's shipment documents, validates the receipt date, adds the document date, checks that the quantity in parameters is equal to ordered quantity, reviews the lines, and clicks OK. If we return to the purchase order, we can notice that the status has changed to received. Moreover, in the Copilot summary, we can see that the order consists of one line item, which has been fully received but not fully invoiced. Peter decides to check the available quantity of laptops in the company. He opens the on-hand list report, sets the item number and site. In the report, we can see that we now have 10 items with the status available physical and no items with the status ordered in total. To review the same information about inventory transactions, Peter can use the product receipt journal from the purchase order. The journal lines contain information about all inventory transactions related to the purchase order, their status, item quantity, and inventory dimensions. When a purchase order receipt is posted, several key general ledger transactions can be generated to accurately reflect the financial impact of the receipt. Our system supports multiple options for configuring these transactions, and we use posting profiles to map posting types to general ledger accounts. For this demo, we will focus on how posting types define a general category for debit or credit. Let's take the example of Alice, the accounts payable clerk at Contoso. When Alice needs to check the general ledger transactions automatically created during a purchase order receipt posting, she opens the product receipt journal and selects the View Accounting menu. Here, she reviews the following transactions. First, we have the Cost of Purchased Materials Received account. This account registers the costs when a purchase order product receipt is posted. The offset to this account is Purchase Expenditure, Uninvoiced. This leads us to the Purchase Expenditure, Uninvoiced account, which is debited to record the cost of the received goods or services. The offset to this account is Purchase Accrual, which is used to accrue the liability for the received goods or services. By ensuring these transactions are accurately recorded, our financial statements reflect the receipt of goods or services even before the vendor's invoice is received and processed. This seamless process helps maintain the integrity of our financial records. Our next step belongs to the Business Process Area 75.50 Manage Accounts Payable, specifically the Business Process 75.50.020 Process Supplier Invoices. This business process is executed by Alice, the accounts payable clerk at Contoso. Alice receives an invoice from the vendor via email as an attached PDF file. There are several ways to register vendor invoices in Dynamics 365 ERP. Here, we will review the basic option Invoice Registration from the purchase order. Based on information from the invoice, Alice finds the purchase order in the system. She opens the form Purchase Orders Received but Not Invoiced and filters purchase orders by vendor. In the purchase order form, she navigates to the Invoice tab in the ribbon and selects Generate Invoice. In the created document, she needs to set up the invoice number and the invoice date. Alice attaches the received vendor's invoice file to the invoice record in Dynamics 365 ERP using the same method that we saw before. By default, the match status of invoice is not performed. Alice clicks the Match Product Receipts menu, marks receipts corresponding to the invoice, and clicks Update Match Status. The match status now is passed, meaning the system performed a three-way match, comparing corresponding values in the purchase order, receipt, and invoice. By clicking the Totals menu, she opens summary data for the invoice. She verifies the numbers against the vendor's document she received. To finalize invoice registration, Alice clicks Post in the ribbon. After invoice posting, status of the purchase order is changed to invoiced. Next, let's move on to the transactions generated during invoice posting. Alice opens the invoice journal and clicks on View Accounting. The form displays the following transactions. First, we have the vendor balance, credit, account, which represents the amount that should be paid to the vendor. Then, there's the vendor balance, debit, account, which represents the vendor's discount amount. Moving forward, we encounter the purchase expenditure for product account. Here, accounts payable is credited to recognize the liability to the vendor for the invoiced amount, while purchase expenditure, invoiced, is debited to record the cost of the goods or services received. Additionally, if applicable, tax amounts are posted to the relevant tax accounts, such as VAT payable or receivable. If there is a difference between the purchase order price and the invoice price, the purchase price variance account captures this variance. The accruals made at the time of goods receipt are reversed to ensure that the expense is recognized at the time of invoicing. Any additional charges, such as freight or handling fees, are posted to the appropriate expense accounts. These charges can be allocated to specific invoice lines or distributed across multiple lines. Lastly, if any discounts are applied to the invoice, the discount amount is posted to a discount account, reducing the overall expense. Our next step within Business Process Area 75.50 Manage Accounts Payable will be the Business Process 75.50.090 Issue and Settle Supplier Payments. Alice needs to understand the current situation with vendor invoices and payments. She opens the Vendor Payment workspace and navigates to Analytics tab. On the Report Invoices Due in Future, she finds Not Paid Invoice from Best Laptops. Alice navigates to the Accounts Payable/Vendor Payment Journal and creates a new payment journal. In the Name field, she selects the appropriate journal name and clicks Lines to open the journal lines. We will use the Payment Proposal functionality to create payment journal lines. The system will automatically find the vendor's invoices that should be paid. Alice clicks on Payment Proposal and selects Create Payment Proposal. In the Proposal Type field, she chooses the type of proposal, e.g., due date, cash discount. Using the filter, she limits the vendors list, selects the vendor Best Laptops and clicks OK to generate the payment proposal. Alice reviews the list of invoices selected by the Payment Proposal function. It is possible to add or remove invoices here. Using Show Payment Overview button, Alice can find some of proposed payments. And using Balance Control, she can understand how the payment will affect a company's bank account. Since everything is okay, Alice selects Create Payments, reviews the created journal lines, and adds a transaction's description if needed. To create a file for the bank's payment, Alice clicks the Generate Payment button. In the opened window, she checks the method of payment and bank account and clicks OK. In the new window, we can see details of the file that will be created: file format, file name, and effective date. As a result, the file is created and, according to the company's payment calendar, this file can be sent to the bank for execution. Finally, Alice posts the vendor payment journal. When the journal is posted, the system generates the following transactions. The accounts payable account is debited to reduce the liability to the vendor for the invoiced amount, reflecting the payment made to the vendor. Then, the bank account is credited to reflect the outflow of cash from our organization's bank account, showing the reduction in the bank balance due to the payment. These transactions ensure that our financial statements accurately reflect the payment to the vendor, maintaining accurate financial records and providing a clear picture of our organization's cash flow. The final step in our demo is Business Process Area 75.80 Analyze Procurement and Sourcing. Here we will review analytical reporting options in procurement and accounts payable areas. Dynamics 365 AI ERP has several types of reports. In this demo, we will review reports based on Microsoft Power BI service. These reports usually can be found on Analytics tab in some workspaces or in the Inquiries and Reports sections. In Power BI report, a user can limit viewed data using multiple filters on the filter panel. Explore data via visual data elements. Since all visuals on the page are linked, the user can use it for data filtering too. The system contains a rich set of reports out of the box, but business users with special permissions can modify existing reports and create new based on provided extendable data model using standard Power BI approach. Let's start from the Power BI report for purchase performance analysis. Peter, the manager of the procurement department, needs to overview purchase orders for current and previous years. He opens the analytical report Purchase and Spend Analysis and set year offset in filters. The report contains 7 pages. Purchase by vendor. Purchase by product. Purchase by period. Purchase by vendor location. Purchase spent analysis by time. Purchase spent analysis by vendor. In last 2 reports, the user can drill down on dimensions. The Supply Risk Assessment Workspace empowers supply managers to gain insights into the likelihood of encountering sourcing shortages and delays. It shows metrics such as on-time in full or OTIF ratings for vendors and product rankings. It also represents past performance as a risk for future supply. Planned purchase orders can be used to quantify risk in terms of the quantity and amount that are at risk if the same performance and trend continue into the future. For example, Peter needs to know vendors and products where OTIF risks are high for future purchases. On the page Planned Purchase Risk and tile Suppliers by Planned Quantity and Products, he selects the left bar with the highest OTIF risks. The system automatically filters all other tiles, and on the tiles Vendor Ranking and Product Ranking, we can find information about the vendor and products. The Sourcing Risk Analysis page contains OTIF rates grouped by products and vendors. The purchase versus planned orders allow to compare data in table form and using geographical maps diagrams. Planned supply flow page highlight insights related to main cities where our logistics streams flow. Main report for accounts payable is Vendor Payments report from the Vendor Payments workspace. Alice, account payable clerk, uses these reports every day to check payments overview, all historical data related to payments with opportunity to filter data on multiple dimensions. Invoice overview, invoices past due, due today, due in the future. Early payment discounts taken to discount lost. Invoices paid late. Payment workflow details. Vendor to customer balance. Open invoices with payment hold. Dynamics 365 Finance License includes another reporting tool based on Power BI Business Performance Analytics. The tool contains a data model aggregating information from finance, supply chain and commerce and a set of standard reports that can be copied and extended. There are some reports related to source to pay business process. They are purchase orders, vendor aging, vendor invoices, vendor payments, and vendor transactions. For instance, let's review purchase orders report. In the report we can select legal entity, time period, purchase order status, and explore purchase orders data grouped by currency in terms of quantities and amount. We have reviewed minimal valuable functionality of source to pay end-to-end business process. As you can see, Pareto's rule works here as well. Small part of Dynamics 365 AI ERP functionality cover almost all basic need of any company's procurement. The next question that you may have: how much implementation costs can be? First of all, there are some prerequisites for source to pay. You need to implement MVP for design to retire to be able to create released products. Some master data from others' MVPs should be added to the system, for instance, general ledger accounts and dimensions from record to report and inventory dimensions from inventory to deliver. Usually local Microsoft partners have ready-to-use data packs that can be imported to your Dynamics 365 installation via functionality of import data. Then the partner should import business users to the system from Azure Enter ID, assign pre-configured business roles to them, and provide role-specific trainings. That's all. You can start user acceptance testing. Based on results of UAT, you will clearly understand the next steps. All these steps needs days or weeks, not years.